That's fine. You can call me Luminous for the sake of the show.
I think I should call you Luminous, really. Yeah, it seems to me that you're quite well known in the area, then.
Yeah, I don't know if it's for a good reason, but yeah, it seems to be.
But one of your songs is about being a chav.
Yeah.
So now, is that a bit of a celebration about?
It's not a celebration. I think more than anything, it's probably like social commentary in a way. My idea was to create a track which gave an idea of what the average day was like for a chav in Boston, or how I saw it. People took it the wrong way and saw me as a chav, and I subsequently received probably necessary criticism from it, but that was the idea behind it, I guess.
So are you tempted to have a little bit of a sort of hip-hop, entourage and a bit of a posse and the boys with the dark glasses?
I don't think that's my style. I'm not a gangster or anything like that, so... that's
it'd be quite good, though, to walk... Right, I'm going... Luminous is going up the stump. Meet we.
I don't think I've ever been able to really do anything like that. I don't think anything like that would particularly go down well in Boston. I don't think ego go down well in Boston unless you can back it up, and I can't, so...
Lewis, you're going to come up and do us your Boston town song for us?
I'll try and remember one verse.
All right, that'd be brilliant. Give me a round of applause, please.
We run this from the dock to Elliot's shop, from Central Park to After Dark, where they just have to start. Don't even try them on Slags Island. Don't be seen down Rape Alley or hanging late round alleys. For the sake of chips and cheese, your lips will bleed. How can you tell us to keep quiet? They cause carnage with an 04 riot, turning over cars and setting them alight. Any time of day, they're ready for a fight. They don't like the influx of immigrants holding their hands up, pleading innocence. There's a clear divide. I don't know who's to blame, but when it comes to a head, both sides will lose the game. Kicking it down in Boston town, we're kicking it down here all year round.
Now, this accusation of chavdom, some people might think it's a modern thing. In 1911, the Vicar of Boston was one Reginald Haygate, who said about the town, "I have never in all my experience come across such a low standard with regard to the question of sexual morality nor run up against such cases of immorality as I have during the past 6 years in Boston." What do you do here? I think it was quite feisty of your predecessors to put anywhere here at all. It must have taken this huge effort, because the first settlers in the Fens found that, because it was so low, it always flooded. I went to the sluice gate. These water engineers, they were brilliant, because they're just so enthusiastic about drains and sluices and things. And they told us all the history of it, about the early settlers on the land, like about living on this land that's slightly raised and the only bits that didn't flood and stuff. You think, oh, they must have been on Cheese Hill then, must have been a rat race. And then dikes were built and ditches were built, and then windmills pumped out the water, and the Irish came over and dug more and more stuff that could be used as drains, and then the sluice gates were built that let the water go underneath and drift back out when the tide's going that way, but when the tide's coming in, then they just drop to stop the water coming in. All this sort of ingenuity. And then on top of all that, one of these engineers, he said, but if the sea levels keep rising, in 100 years, we'll have to make a decision of whether to keep Boston. No, you'll be like Atlantis. There'll be divers in about 1,000 years, you know, and they'll have heard about the lost city of Boston, and then there'll be divers who'll go down and they'll come up all excited going, I think I've found it. There's hundreds of really fat skeletons on the seabed. All with these bracelets round them. That must be it. But one of the things, if you look at the sort of history of Boston, one of the lessons, it seems to me, is that towns can be really important and can then disappear and then come back and then disappear and then come back and be huge again. And I think that's what you've done here in Boston over the centuries. You've been the equivalent of Tom Jones or Tina Turner or something. You have a century off and then you come back. And because it was the main port for getting wool across to Holland. Boston, one of the most important towns of England. And then in the 13th century, decided to build the stump, which was like a statement. Look at us, we're important, we can have this thing. Now, it's really hard, I think, to explain to anybody who's not been here just how dominant the stump is, this huge church, and it is a huge place where everything else is utterly flat. You know, like I reckon the second tallest building in Boston is probably a post box. And people say, oh, you go up the stump, it's marvellous, you can see for miles and miles and miles. And you think, well, yes, but on the other hand, it's Boston. You can probably see Spalding if you sit on the back of a donkey. Have you all been up it? Yes. And do you all sort of go up quite regular and that? And it's like, because I get the impression people are... just once. Well, maybe you ought to go up there a bit more often, like lose weight. I spent a morning on Holmes Farm, run by Roger Welbury, picking Brussels sprouts. And I'm slightly surprised, because there was a bit of me that thought, oh, this will be fun, it's outdoors and it's rustic and it's at one with nature and it's organic, and I'm from London and I can say that I'm responsible for Brussels sprouts. And after about an hour, the novelty wore off, to be honest. Normally, with manual work, you sort of have a sense of how far you've gone. So you're trying to do sort of like carry a load of stuff from here to the other side of the room, and you get through it, and after an hour you look and you think, oh, I've done that much and there's that much left. But with Brussels sprouts, in the Brussels sprouts field, I sort of looked at the little patch around me, about 4 foot around me, and I thought, well, I've probably sorted out about 20 sprout plants. I'm doing quite well. And then you look up and you realise that in every direction, all around you, for about 800 million miles, going way out into outer bloody space, there is nothing but sprouts and sprouts and sprouts, and you feel like you're in one of these Roman myths where you've upset the gods and they have condemned you forevermore to just pick sprout plants for the whole of eternity. And you will never have a minute off from picking sprouts like that poor bloke who got done in by the gods and had to push a boulder up a hill and watch it roll down and then push it up again. Except at least he got to see a hill, the jammy sod. So with us is Roger Welbury, who runs the Brussels sprout farm. And Roger, I think this is going to be an easy thing for you to do. I just want you to be passionate, and I know you'll find this very easy, about Brussels sprout.
One of the best vegetables you can eat, full of vitamin C, folic acid for pregnant women, potassium, everything you want to eat. The little green pill that does you ever so much good. I've been pushing that for the last few years, but to get it through to children, I'm still struggling. The
marvellous thing about spending a little bit of time in a sprout farm is you do realise, you know, you think, oh, I've always taken them for granted, but once you've been out there and realised that they've been lovingly planted and nurtured and watered in the right way, and then someone's come along and put the stuff between their knees and picked them or scuffed them or whatever, and put them in the sacks and weighed and labelled and lovingly trimmed and taken off to market and driven, and all this has to be organised, then you don't take them for granted, because you realise they have to go all through that before they're then cooked and put on a plate so a kid can go, I don't like sprouts, and put them in the bin. And that gives you a whole new angle on them. In the 1600s, you became not just one of the most important towns in England, but one of the most important towns in history, which was all linked to the rise of Puritanism. So, for example, in 1613, the new vicar appointed to Boston was the Puritan John Cotton. And Cotton's sermons were aimed at the common person, and he became hugely popular and an attraction throughout the whole county. And the Bishop of Lincoln eventually was sent to the stump to check up on him, and he was doing these 5-6 hour sermons, John Cotton, and so he fell foul of the authorities there, and Cotton was called before the church courts for preaching non-conformist ideas. But he was so popular they didn't sack him, so the king and the heads of the church must have been just furious that the biggest parish church in Britain, the man preaching every day was someone opposed to their very, very existence, and there was nothing they could do about it. It was around this time that some Puritans decided on a change of tactics, which was to flee altogether. And between 1620 and 1640, a fifth of the population of Boston sailed over there to the Massachusetts Bay, including John Cotton, and one of the first batch to arrive was a man called John Winthrop, and he announced in this new city that they called Boston as well, after Boston here obviously, he announced, "We have been divinely ordained to build in New England a city upon a hill."